Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Dwight Rhoden, acclaimed choreographer, co-founder and co-artistic director of the incredible Complexions Contemporary Ballet. This groundbreaking, award-winning company was founded in 1997 by Dwight and the legendary Desmond Richardson, and with an exciting year ahead, I'm thrilled to get to know this company more. Hi Dwight, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi. Glad to be here.
So, Complexions is a renowned company that has toured extensively around the world. But for those who perhaps haven't seen the company or is in one of the very few countries where the company hasn't been, tell me a bit about Complexions.
Complexions was started in 1994 by Desmond Richardson and myself. And the company is we are a touring organization. We are born and bred here in New York, and it's a contemporary ballet company. We have 16 dancers, plus a few different apprentices from time to time. And, it's a company that uses the medium of dance to actually communicate a message of unity, because that's kind of what Complexions is all about. In every aspect of the company, we try to, toast the idea of diversity and multiculturalism, and really, from the choices of music to the types of movement that we do, and to the messages that are in the work. It's that kind of company that's quite edgy in a way.
On your website, I read this wonderful sort of summary that says the company's foremost innovation is that dance should be about removing boundaries, not reinforcing them. And whether it be the limitations of traditions or of a single style or period or culture, that the company Complexions transcends all of these, creating an open and continually evolving form of dance that reflects movement in our world and all of its constituent cultures as an interrelated whole, which I absolutely loved as an incredible, as you say, sort of a company that is diverse, it's edgy, that has a wide sort of repertoire of work. So you talking about this company, how it pushes the boundaries. I'm really interested to hear more about how you do that.
Well, I think, it's for instance, we are, at the moment, we are actually here in New York in season, and one of our programs that we're running kind of has that, that diversity, that idea of bringing together all these seemingly different qualities and putting them under one roof and watching them work in a harmonious way. One of the programs we're running right now is we open with a piece called Bach 25, which is very neoclassical and contemporary, yet we have to classical music, and then we're closing the show with a new work called Love Rocks, which is to the music of Lenny Kravitz. So I think what Desmond and I try to do, the co-director and I try to do on every level of the company, is bring that multitude of colors, qualities, and textures, and really, from our programming, from the selections of music, certainly to the dancers. There's no one dancer alike at all in our company. We're not looking for similarities; we're actually looking for differences. And the beauty of that, that counterpoint almost on stage is like part of what we do. And we try to make sure, we thread it through every part of who and what we are. And it's not fun. It's just myself and Desmond Richardson, the co-director, it's just kind of, it's who we are and how we view the world. So it's really kind of, I think that in some ways it is different than other companies, I'd like to say. And, we were doing it, now there's a big sort of push in that area, in the idea of diversity in ballet and in dance in general. And I think that, we were kind of started there, 26 years ago, so.
Yeah, it's sort of quite trailblazing in a way, or leading the change that is so very necessary. And I have to say, when you go onto your website and look at the way in which the company is positioned and have a look at the dancers, the quality of the dancers is incredible. You obviously work very, very hard at not just, as you say, selecting dancers who are, different, but also in terms of the technical capacity and the artistry of the dancers. Tell me more about how you work with the dancers in the studio.
Yeah, I think we're really we're hands-on directors. I'm in the studio as much as I can. I have to travel sometimes and do other things, but I really am in the room. We train them, and also we're looking for a kind of dancer that can do many things. You have to have a kind of a strong technical foundation, because the work is quite demanding in that area. But we also are looking for people who can, really move their bodies fully. And more importantly, we're also looking for people with this, it's called that thing. It's really, really hard to describe, like something about them. And sometimes, we pick people that it's not necessarily the best dancer in the room that can, do the most turns or, has most, the highest jump or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not really about that. Certainly we want that part as well. But sometimes it's about just some unique quality that they have. And, also we want somebody who has something to say, who has their own voice, who has their own ideas that can be shaped or guided. I always tell the dancers, I'm just your guide. A lot of times, I want to see what I see in them. It's my job to bring it out and to shape it for whatever we're working on. And, I'm collaborative in that way. I don't ask them to make up the steps for me or choreograph the ballet, but they certainly are participating. Yeah. And I like it that if they're available, and I mean that in a very sort of spiritual way as well, like available to. And so it's exciting because I have to be really into the artist in terms of what they're bringing to the mix, and it's exciting to just discover all those unique. It's food for me too. I enjoy that.
And you obviously were a dancer yourself, so let's talk a little bit about your own dance career and then how that has influenced your work as a choreographer and as an artistic director, because you actually started dancing relatively late at the age of 17. Tell me about how you got into dance in the first place.
Yeah, I was late to the party with the dancing. I had no idea that it was even an option in a career. I started because I basically was always dancing. My family, we're like one of those families that had music on all the time, and everybody was moving and doing their thing. So I started that way. And I used to get into, there used to be a dance contest pretty much like every weekend or so at school. And I would always enter the dance contest, and I guess there was one girl who was a professional dancer who basically came up to me and said, you're really talented. Have you ever thought about coming and taking a real dance class? And I was like, no, I have not. And she basically said, well, come and take this class. And so I went to, it was a local smaller contemporary company in my home state of Ohio. And that's how I came to it. And I literally, I was a musician before. I played some instruments and was, also did some stuff in theater. But I really did not understand that dance was something that you could have a career with at the time. I just didn't know. And she brought me into the room, and I saw this art form in a school, in a ballet class, I think it was first. And I was just like, wow, this is. I never looked back after that. I quit my job, and
wow.
I really haven't stopped since that day. So that's how I started.
And when did you know that you wanted to be a professional dancer? Was it right away at that moment, or when you were sort of into your training? Tell me about that sort of moment for you, if there was one.
Yeah, it was really almost immediate, to be honest. Once I walked in and I saw that, wow, this is this is an organized, disciplined art form. And then it was just so natural to me to move, but I had a lot of work to do, and I was already, graduating high school, and there were like a lot of decisions to be made. But I knew right away that I wanted to do it, and I don't want to say that I knew, that I was making a decision, but I was just I kind of led with my heart in a way, and just did what I wanted to do, and I just loved it so much right away.
And what was that transition like for you, going from, starting at 17, as you say, walking into a class that's established dancers who've been probably doing it for, at least 10 years, and then sort of going through that training and actually becoming a professional dancer? Well,
I think it was, also they were looking for men in this particular company, so I was in the right place at the right time. So there was a junior company, there was a professional company, a state and contemporary dance company, and they're still around and still doing their thing. And I basically, was almost immediately brought in because I moved well. I was musical. I had some flexibility, but I had no training. There was just no training whatsoever. But there was a junior company, and they brought me in, and sort of just I took as many classes as I could. I also went over to the ballet company that's in my hometown, and I just became obsessed. So I was just going to every class that I could, and learning all that I could. So it was kind of a unique situation, because it doesn't necessarily happen that way for everybody, but I was in the right place. I had people who really thought I had talent, and they were pushing me forward to do it. So it was an interesting moment.
And you went on to dance with the Ballet Jazz Company in Montreal, but also you ended up as a principal dancer at the Alvin Ailey Company, which, this is not an insignificant career. This is an exceptional career. Tell me about working particularly with these companies. What was it like for you, and working with some of these greats?
Well, I went to Le Ballet Jazz de Montreal when I had, I had been dancing a bit, and then I the other company in Dayton, I had sort of grew up into the main company. It all happened very fast, and to be honest, I was training and learning as I went. Like, it was all a part of it. I was, I want to say I was a good imitator, and that sounds really crazy. Probably. I knew how, there was a certain amount of certainly like natural talent, and I was a very passionate young man, I would say. So if the music came on, I would, be able to deliver something. But the training that I needed, it was an ongoing process throughout my entire career until I stopped, to be honest. It's a lot of catch up to do. And I also sort of rose up rather quickly. In La Ballet Jazz, when I left my hometown, really, and went to Montreal, I immediately started touring, and I had never done anything like that. I had traveled, of course, with my family, but I had never toured and, been all over the world in that way. And there was a lot to learn, and it was interesting to be a part of that company. That company was a really, really beautiful company at the time, a lot of beautiful dancers. And then I know that I just set my goals. I just kept wanting more, and the Ailey Company, the Alvin Ailey Company, was something that I aspired to, but I had no idea. I was like, this will never happen. I auditioned for them 3 times, and then the third time I ended up getting the job. And dancing with Ailey was really the place where I kind of realized my entire sort of self as an artist, because of the opportunities I had there. And I danced a lot. I actually worked with Alvin. Alvin Ailey actually hired me, so it was incredible experience to at least be under his leadership for the couple of years before his death. And I rose up in that company rather quickly. definitely, always improving and getting better as time went on. But it was really all about what that company represented at the time, which was sort of had this, for me, it was sort of the pinnacle. It was this place I wanted to reach. I always was like, pinching myself to say, like, yeah, am I really in this company? I mean, I had not been dancing very long, and to be able to achieve that was surprising for me. But I always thought, there was someone would find me out all the time and be like, you don't really know.
The imposter.
Yeah, you don't really know. But again, there obviously was something there that people saw. Yeah. Even if I didn't know everything,
Absolutely. I don't think you rise to that level with that type of company without inherent skills and artistry, and, as you say, the constant work that you put into improving and condensing all of those years into a short period of time. Yeah. But tell me, when did you start thinking about creating your own work as a choreographer? What was the sort of inspiration or the catalyst for you doing that?
Well, I mean, if we dial back to when I started in those dance contests, I was always making up my own routines. Now, again, I didn't know anything about the craft of choreography at all, or even what that word was at the time. But all along, and even when I started in the small company in Ohio, in Dayton, I was making things. I would always be in the studio. They would throw me out. I was always, at the end of the day, I would stay longer and just, I guess we would call it improvisation. But I would, improvisation, but I would also like make up things. And then I started to ask my friends, and I did that in Montreal and in Ailey, at the Ailey School. And I would present works in the, on the school kids and the kids in the school and make things. And eventually, and Alvin saw my work as well. But then when Judith Jamison took over the company, she noticed my talent, and she gave me an opportunity to do a work for the company, and that was sort of a huge thing. And she's like, she was very supportive of myself as a choreographer, and I did my first work for them, and it was quite a big success. And that was sort of, I kind of knew immediately that it was always a part of what I was doing. As I was developing as a dancer and doing all that, I was always doing side projects and trying to choreograph and make things, make dances. And that's kind of how it all came together for me.
And so how did the sort of sequence happen? You're sort of creating the work, and then did you sort of decide to create your own company? What was the catalyst for that? And because you've created, I was reading you've created over 80 pieces of work, and you've worked with a huge roster of the world's, leading companies, and you continue to do so. And this year is looking like a full calendar for you with other companies and other works. Yeah. So tell me about how that sort of transition happened in your life.
Well, I think it just was kind of, I don't want to say that any of this was planned out and sort of, strategized.
Okay.
It really wasn't. It just sort of happened. I think that I fell in love with choreography once I knew what it was. Once I knew what I was already sort of doing, making dances. I fell in love with it, and I knew that I really, really wanted to pursue it. And so Desmond and I, we were both in the Ailey company together, and then he was leaving. I was leaving the company in 1994, and he was going to Frankfurt Ballet to dance with Billy Forsythe. And we decided that we were going to put together, a show here in New York, and we just wanted to invite all the people that we respected from the industry, some of our friends from all the major companies around. Sort of, there was Joffrey was still in New York at that time. Certainly the Ailey company, some from ABT, New York City Ballet. We had some other people from smaller companies, but just people that we really liked, and we certainly wanted it to be people from all different parts of the dance field, with different skills. And I just had this bright idea that I would choreograph an entire show. I didn't really know what that entailed because I had never done it yet. And we put it together, and it was quite a success. It was we did it at this theater uptown called Symphony Space, and we just produced an evening. Now, it was just going to be a project. It was going to be, and the project was called Complexions. And when Desmond and I were making all of this, it was just an incredible experience to work with all these different dancers and people from all these different worlds. And coordinating it was, just sort of a nightmare because everybody had jobs at the time. So they would come and work with us in the evening, and we produced the show, and we sat back while we were doing the technical rehearsal, and we were fixing all of those things, the lighting and all of that. And we looked at each other and were like, this is amazing. Because the beauty of what it is kind of hopefully the beauty of what Complexions has, ended up being. It was all of these different people, different voices, different training, different bodies. And they were all on stage together, and they were having like a great time. I mean, it could have gone one of two ways. Thankfully, it went a very, in the most amazing way, because some people didn't know each other. You had classical dancers with very contemporary dancers. You had some sort of street hip-hop dancers working with, someone who was more classical. It was just really it was wonderful. And we looked at each other and we said, we got to do something with this. And he was like, do you want to start a company? I was like, yep, let's do it. And that's how Complexions was born. Just sitting around a tech.
Wow, that's... I literally, as you are saying this, I can literally imagine this moment in my mind so very clearly. You're in this space, and I can even imagine the two of you sort of turning to each other and making this quite monumental decision. And look where you are today. As I mentioned, you've created over 80 ballets. Tell me about the work that the company produces and some of the works that are coming up. We produce a lot of different things. We are one of our programs that we are doing right now is called Bach to Bowie, and this has been sort of a very successful program for us. We're touring it. We've been touring it for a couple years, and I made a tribute to David Bowie, and it's a contemporary ballet. It's actually on point. Very physical, very theatrical. And then there's Bach 25, which runs with that program. And we're actually going to be touring all throughout Europe this summer. Well, actually throughout Germany, from the end of June till I think it's like August 12th. And we're going to be in 7 cities in Germany, and we're like 7 or 8 shows a week in each one of the cities. Wow.
So, yeah, we're creating a lot of different things. And I think, and as I said earlier, there's a new ballet that just premiered 3 days ago here in New York City called Love Rocks. And it is to the music of Lenny Kravitz. We also have been doing other work over the years. We're doing a piece, Chopin work, which is called Dear Frederick. There's a lot of different things being developed as we speak. So there's kind of the repertory is very diverse, lots of different textures, some on point, some not on point, some very, I want to say very gooey is what I say, the quality of movement. We do all kinds of work. We dance to all types of music. And, the thing about Complexions is it grows and changes and evolves as we go. And then, the constant thing is that the movement is many different textures and many different ways of moving. And that's kind of the challenge for dancers who dance with a company. You have to be able to have that versatility and be able to, be very close to the ground and be more, into that more contemporary in your upper body and also in your abilities. But then you also there's a classicism that we also utilize in certain parts of the repertory. So it's like, from one end of the spectrum to the other. But it's fun.
What inspires the creations? Because with such a huge body of work, where do you get and draw your inspirations from?
Well, I'm inspired by a lot of things. I am inspired by the world around us, to be honest. I'm always looking at the condition of the human heart in a lot of ways. I'm looking at how people are reacting. I look at our behaviors. I also look at the different issues that are happening around the world. And then I'm hugely inspired by the artist in front of me. I love to get into the room. Sometimes I have a piece of music that's just, calling me to do something to it, and I'll just begin to work on it, and it'll slowly start to come together. But my dancers, or the dancers that I work with in general, are always primary. Like it's kind of where it begins for me, because it's really, anybody can come up with any steps, and the steps are not, there are no new steps really. There's different approaches, different ideas, different way to compose these ideas. However, dance has been around a long time, and what's more interesting to me are how people inhabit the work itself, or inhabit the movement, and what they bring to it. And I know that sounds sort of esoteric in some ways, but it's really about the person. Like, once they step into the movement, how those people develop it. So I'm really into working with dancers in that way, and trying to also see what they bring. It's all about possibilities, and it's not just about me. Sometimes I get out of the way and allow things, allow things to evolve and happen.
And as an artistic director of your own company, you mentioned there about looking out into the world and the state of the human heart and the issues. What do you feel are some of the challenges that are facing, rising dancers or aspiring dancers in the industry and in the world today, which perhaps is either something that might be new or different, or just an emerging challenge that we see?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, it's certainly not anything negative. One thing I do see with dancers today is that I see a huge ability, like a level. Like, dancers are better and better at a younger age. They bring a skill set to the studio or to their work. They're ready to go. They can do all these really amazing things. But at the same time, I would say the challenge that I see is that, these people, the young people who are dancing, that they need the guidance and the support, and they need that because they also have to be encouraged to continue to use their imagination, because I say, like, the world is, it's on your phone. It's right there. You can get to every. So a lot of times, we can't sacrifice, quality for quantity. A lot of times, I can do a lot of these, crazy, amazing things, but how moving will it be for the audience if there's not some contact with their soul, or bringing their own experiences into the work? Because that's what people want to feel when you're sitting in the audience, or see or connect to. So a lot of times you have to it's there, and you just encourage them to use their imagination, or let the vulnerability take over, and allow yourself to be generous. And I think that is, the world is right at your fingertips. You can access just about anything in minutes. So there's also, I always tell them, they can never they can never replace the live art form, because it's nothing like it. It's no YouTube, no Instagram, none of that will do anything, will be any sort of, it's not comparable to what live performance does. When you're sitting in the theater, the performers are in front of you and you feel that energy. So I always, just think that they have to always be encouraged to go deeper in the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a rich experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In the audience, we can feel it. We really can.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about what your aspirations are for Complexions, because what does the sort of next 5-10 years look like if you've sort of been looking that far into the future?
Well, Complexions has an academy, and we are kind of a mobile academy. We have summer programs and pre-professional programs. Every summer we are in 7 different cities, and we do our own summer intensives. We have winter intensives, and we also have a pre-professional program. I think for the next 5 years or so, one of our goals is to finally have a home. We actually don't have our own space, so we're looking to build some sort of, we would like to have our own space after all this time. So a home, a training ground for all of the young people that study with us throughout the year. I think that the company wants to continue its touring. Well, we certainly like to come to the UK. We have not been.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed on the list of your touring that the UK is not on there, but I did note, being Australian, that you have been or are out with the Western Australian Ballet, who I've also been out to see some time ago. So that made me happy as an Aussie.
Yeah, I am doing a work for the Western Australian Ballet in 2021.
Oh, it's next year. Okay.
Well, I start this year in 2020, and then I think it premieres right at the top of 2021. So.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that will be exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we've been all over. We've been to Australia. The company itself has been there, many times, as well as we usually do New Zealand as well while we're in that area. But yeah, I'd love the company to come to UK at some point. Let's see if it happens. Maybe it will.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. You have got to come to London. You've got to do a UK tour in the future. I love the idea of your ballet education initiatives and finding a home, which is so important for a company, especially one, as you said, that's been around for as long as you have as well. It must be difficult to find spaces, I guess, that are viable. In New York, it's a very expensive place to have a ballet company, I expect, but there is it sort of the physical challenge, or is it the funding challenge, or is it just something that needs to be worked through going forward into the future?
I think it also needs to be focused on. It's certainly a challenge. New York City, there's not a lot of space. At the moment, we're sort of set up in a couple different spaces, so we kind of are mobile in that way. And running the academy, it's just about coordinating and certainly there's always. Dance always needs more funding, I have to say. But it's a little bit of all of it sort of rolled into one. But we're definitely focusing on that a lot more. Just last night we had a performance here in New York. It was our gala night, and we have our pre-professionals perform on our gala night. So it's our song one fundraising benefit performance that is in our 2-week run at the Joyce Theater right now. Within that 2-week run, we have one night for fundraising initiatives, and we always present our pre-professional program, and they were, they're fantastic. A lovely group of young dancers who are super talented and ready. There's always good dancers and not enough jobs, you know what I mean? So always those coming up that are ready to go, and that's to me, it's the most exciting time, that pre-professional level, because that's right when they're on the cusp, you know.
So thinking about those dancers then, what would be your advice to them in terms of, you mentioned there's obviously not enough jobs and we need more funding for the arts and particularly for dance, but what advice either that you've been given that you would like to pass on, or words that you'd like them to sort of take into account maybe?
Well, I think it's a work-life balance in a way. It's certainly train. I think that dancers need to be, you know, my mindset is that, you know, your foundation has to be strong and clear, so that you can be articulate. Really, it's about, you know, I call it basic training. I think that, you know, you have to have a really strong foundation, and that is certainly for the shape and form. I think it's good for dancers to have a good, strong ballet foundation, but also have a sense of contemporary movement and training in that as well. I think clear training, but also leading a life where you're able to bring your experiences into the room with you, and so that you're not just sort of a run-of-the-mill where, you know, you just reproduce perfect steps, because it's not that interesting. What's really interesting is for you to be able to, you know, show a piece of yourself, bring yourself to the work. I think versatility is really kind of the key these days, because, you know, most companies dabble in other stuff. Even if they're a classical ballet company, there's a contemporary series, and dancers are able to do many things these days. So my advice to young dancers is get all that you can in the area of training and expose yourself to as many different styles of movement that you can, and try things that are out of your comfort zone. You know, I think, you know, a classical dancer should try moving or taking a hip-hop class, or a hip-hop dancer should take ballet. I think, you know, it's like you gotta really expose yourself to other things. One just absolutely enhances the other.
And as you mentioned before, you know, classes, but also the world is at our fingertips these days, which is also a challenge for dancers, as you mentioned before. But it's just, I love the idea of dancers sort of, you know, working on their versatility and really challenging themselves and bringing their life and their personality into the studio and into their work. It's wonderful advice. Yeah. I really just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of what is your very busy schedule to talk with me today. And I just wanted to very quickly, for all the listeners, because we have mentioned that there is tours and new work, so I'm just going to run through a few because I wouldn't want anyone to sort of miss out. There's a premiere coming up with the Atlanta Ballet, which is on the 7th of February, which we probably haven't even talked about this one, Dwight. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm very excited about this project. I just created a work that's going to be a collaboration with the Spelman Glee Club and Gospel Choir there. So it's going to be about 40 singers on the stage, and this is to all gospel music, live music. It's about a 32-minute ballet for, I believe there's 16 dancers, quite a large format. It's a very exciting collaboration that I'm doing for Atlanta Ballet. So it's going to be fun, and it opens, as you said, on February 7th.
And then you've got a remount at the Pittsburgh Ballet of your piece called Simon Says, which is coming out or being remounted in March. Is that right?
Yes, it's a ballet that I've done before, but it's a remount of a ballet to the music of Paul Simon. So I'm looking forward to that, and that'll be going up in Pittsburgh in March. It's kind of a very celebratory work, and more or less uses his music and is a tribute to his catalog. So it's a fun one.
And then you head off, as you mentioned before, on your 7-city German tour. So for our German listeners, and make sure that you hit one of those. Catch us in one of those. I was trying to have a look at the names. So Cologne, Berlin, and many more. Which works are you taking to Germany?
That's going to be the Bach to Bowie program. So it's sort of the piece that's been on tour that we've been doing a lot in the last couple of years. It's sort of a big crowd pleaser. It begins with Bach, and then the final piece of the evening is this sort of large extravaganza of David Bowie. So it's also a very dynamic program.
You do use interesting music. This is not your, standard classical ballet, musical scores. Before we wrap up, you must tell me about this interest in the musical aspects.
Well, I mean, I just, I love all kinds of music, and a lot of times, the one thing that I like to do as well is that, I think that myself, people would describe me a little bit as a showman, and I do like to entertain. We do mini styles, with movement with deep messages, and we're talking about very, very poignant things. And then sometimes, the music I do use popular music sometimes, and I love that as well. So I think the music for me is everything from, we do a very sort of we do a ballet to that's called Ave Maria, to the classical Ave Maria, but we also don't mind using an icon like David Bowie and interpreting that as well. It's really part of who I am and what I like to do. I love dabbling, I should say, in many different types of music, and music is everything, and it's very hard for me to find a piece of music that I can't imagine movement to.
Amazing. I really wish that you come to the UK. I might even have to try and get myself over to Germany while the company is on tour, because I would love to see these works. Thank you so much, Dwight. Yeah, it'd be so amazing. So thank you so much. And I just want to say to all of the listeners, there's a lot that's going on. The program is looking exceptional, and go to the website for details of the tours and for the ballets that are being presented, and that's complexionsdance.org. And of course, follow on Instagram, complexions_ballet. Thank you so much, Dwight.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.